Welcome to Rebecca Sounds Reveille, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project and TLBTV. I am so glad that you're tuned in today. This is part of the 7 series, and today we're going to talk about the 7 virtues of a notable person. So let's first start out with what is the meaning of virtue? And virtue is basically a behavior that shows high moral standards. It means that someone is righteous, they have good morals, and just a goodness about them in whole. And a notable person, or someone, just the definition of notable, is worthy of attention. They're remarkable, outstanding. This is something that you hear, outstanding, in terms of military. And so if you put the two together, it's really quite an amazing thing when you have someone that has all of these things combined into their person, and not just their persona, but who they are. And what ends up happening is that there's a lot of really good benefits that happen in relationships, whether it be in the workplace, whether it's at home. There's a lot of things, but there's a lot of information out there that's totally available when you just type in traits of a good character, traits of a good leader. And that's great. But if you had these virtues as a notable person, that's really going to distinguish you in a lot of areas of your life, not just in the workplace, not just at home, as a well-rounded individual. And so I want to talk to you about the 7 virtues of a notable person. And so that not only can you try to incorporate them in your life if you haven't already, but you can share them with others. Because in my opinion, if we all had virtues of a notable person and we were a notable person, we would have better societal interactions. We would not have as much conflict going on. This is at home, in our communities, at work, and really as a nation as a whole. So again, there's a lot of traits out there, but really we want to talk about those that really have high standards, high morals for us. And I think in a lot of ways our society has kind of eroded in some of them, and we've gotten to a point where we just don't put forth a lot of extra effort into our relationships at home or at work. Why? It could be for time. We're running from one place to another. We're trying to get so many things accomplished in a short period, and we just don't have the time to think about a lot of extra things. And so if we incorporate these and start practicing them on a daily basis, we're really going to be moving ahead very, very quickly. And if, again, all of us did, we would really get along better in society. The first thing to think about, and I want you to think about it in terms of applying these tactics or virtues at home in your own life, and just start there, and that's integrity. And some of the subheadings under this integrity really has to do with honesty, accountability, being ethical. Is it the right thing to do? Sometimes we don't want to say something. Sometimes we don't want to do something, but we really should. And there's really good ways that we can handle situations that we really don't want to address, but we need to. We need to have that integrity. And many jobs in our society really value this in the candidates that they're looking to hire. And so being honest, being accountable are really 2 very, very important things. They want someone they can trust, and they want someone that they can depend on. And both of those fall into the integrity virtue. But it also says a lot about ourselves. And sometimes being honest with ourselves is just as difficult. And so we can even look at applying these internally and looking at our own life. being honest is so important on so many levels. And it's really being honest eh, to yourself. I mean, if you think about this, there is a lot of times and a lot of situations that happen where we can sort of just not be so honest. An example would be going to the grocery store and getting back too much change. Do you go and give it back? These things start right here within ourselves, and so that is the number one virtue that we can have. And really, if you think about it, the rest of the things that I'm going to share with you, well, it'll trickle down if you have this one virtue. The next thing is dedication. That's the second virtue. And dedication is more than just being dependable or accountable to something. And I do want to say something about accountability. Accountability isn't just showing up on time somewhere, it's actually being responsible for something that we have said or done. And that can be both in a really positive light or, again, in a negative light, unfortunately. But it's being accountable and saying, yes, I take responsibility for that. Dedication has a couple of things here. This can be where when we think in terms of dedication, we have a passion for something and we want to keep going after it and just really put our all into it. And oftentimes we don't put our all into something, whether it's family or work or a project, and it's something that we really want to do. We want to be dedicated to whatever it is, whatever task that we take on, whatever project that we take on, to those that we love, honor, respect. Dedication is very, very important. It includes also being on time when we go back to the accountability factor, but it also includes being disciplined. And a lot of times we tend to think of discipline as getting in trouble for something, but discipline is a little bit more than that. It's really focusing on a task at hand, a job that we have to do, being disciplined to something that we have really uh, placed, have been placed, have had something placed in front of us. And so these are really strong things to have in a virtuous person and a notable person. When you want to be remarkable, I'm going to tell you, having integrity and dedication are the first two steps to having someone notice you for you, and also notice the things that you've done, and give the right accolades to you for doing them. I can't tell you how many times that there are people who say, well, I did that and somebody else got the credit for it. I will tell you, when you have these virtues, people will know that you are the one. Yes, that you are the one that did whatever task it was or achieved a certain goal. Even if somebody else tries to usurp that, no. Behind the scenes, everybody knows who it was that really was the one behind that. Okay, so moving on next. This is kind of two words, but it falls into one category of virtue, and that is flexibility and adaptability. We need to be able to, within being dedicated and accountable and being honest, we need to also be able to have the ability to accept change. And oftentimes we get into a routine, we get familiar with it, we get very well at the job that we're doing, and we get used to it. And so oftentimes they say, if it's not broke, don't fix it. There's no point in making change. But as we know, for progress to happen, there has to be change. There's new innovations that come along, technology continues, and knowledge continues to increase, both of these things. So we want to be able to have the ability to accept change when it is presented our way. We also sometimes want to be able to have an invention, a new way of doing something, and to be a change maker. And Along with that, we need to have the ability and willingness to learn and implement new concepts, even when we think that it isn't something that needs to be done. So you can take this on both sides of the coin, in that when it does, we think it doesn't need to be done, but yet also when we do think it needs to get done. So when both of those things happen, we just embrace and learn and acquire as much knowledge as we can so that we have that willingness. We feel a little bit more confident and comfortable in being able to make those changes. Along with this comes tolerance, and tolerance is something that is used in many circles, and the verbiage has to do with the understanding of another culture and or religious beliefs or a different type of standard of living that somebody else has versus what you have. And this is really important because here in the United States, as well as abroad, we're now seeing multicultural, very diverse populations, and we need to be able to integrate as well as we can. And so this comes along right with that. All right, here's a biggie, and that is being intolerant. Now, this is the opposite of tolerance for all of the other things that I just described, but being intolerant for gossip, unethical behavior, and criminal activity. And I can't tell you how often that it is that we tend to not want to stay, or that we do stay quiet. We do not want to stand up for something because somebody else is talking about it. The whole group thinks that this is an okay thing, or we just don't want to get involved. And being a virtuous, notable person, we do want to speak up for these things because we have integrity. We have high moral standards. We want to make sure that everyone is able to function to the best of their ability. And when we are allowing gossip, whether it's in the workplace or at home or in social circles, somebody's going to get hurt, and that's really not okay. And so while we want to be tolerant of certain things, intolerance in this area is really important. Okay, the next thing is being a good communicator, and this comes along down the list. And we want to be able to communicate all these things that we are being involved with. For us to be dedicated to something, for us to make changes, for us to be tolerant in certain areas and have intolerance in others, we need to be able to communicate things. And there are a number of ways to communicate that reduces conflict, and they can be through ways of speaking, they can be through ways of writing, but when it comes back to also being a good communicator, we also have to be able to accept criticism, be a good listener, and be able to peel the layers of the onion when people talk to us, because not always do people have the same abilities to say or share the things that are on their mind. And so they say one thing and they mean another. And peeling the layers of the onion down consists of asking questions to really identify what the underlying or the real issue, the core is of what someone is talking about. So if you don't understand, don't go along with it and don't automatically become defensive. Start asking questions so that you can get to the core of the issue. And as you're practicing listening skills, being a good listener, and learning to peel the onion layer down, eventually it becomes just kind of second nature to you, and you'll be able to identify situations, challenges, problems, or issues before somebody even says them. And you can ask a question, 1 to 2 questions, and really get to the root of the issue. And in communicating, speaking openly and honestly about something, despite whether or not the other person is going to have a reaction that is disagreeable, you can share it in a way that allows the person to feel good about the situation. And how you can do that is by sandwiching things. Start with a positive message, then talk about the issue, and follow it up with a with another positive. And that way the person doesn't think automatically that you are kind of going after the core of their person, but it's just simply an issue or a behavior or a situation that needs to be resolved in a different way. All right, the next thing is being a team player. Now think about this. When you are with a friend, you guys are team players. You and the other person bounce things off of each other and try to have a good time. And kind of a team. But you have to think about this in the teams and the dynamics of a group setting, like a mother, father, child, mother, father, two children. How about extended family? Or how about at work, grouping at work, or in a social circle? Being a good team player means that you are kind, respectful, you motivate others. Not always are the ideas going to be the same ones as yours, and you're going to agree with them, but you all have to come to some type of understanding where you all say, okay, this is what we're all willing to do. Team players are respectful of each other. And this goes back to the above virtues as well. But you think in terms of not just, what do I want out of this? How is this going to make me look? But in terms of how successful is our team going to be? How successful is our group or organization going to be? We all want to work together. What's really interesting, and a lot of people don't understanding, but virtuous, notable people do, is that when you're helping others, you're really also helping yourselves. When you're promoting others, you actually end up promoting yourself. When others end up getting recognized, you're recognized as well. And oftentimes we don't see that in terms of really helping each other. We oftentimes look at just what it is that's going to benefit ourselves. Also, being a team player means you don't just go along with what the group says. What it means is that you also will input suggestions and ideas to help the success of the group, or to help the group work towards its goal. Very important here that each member of the team inputs something, some kind of suggestion, some kind of idea. You can think outside of the box, and it may not be accepted, but you're inputting things. And there's so many different perspectives that happen and can be put into one team building session, that another idea can spark from that will lead to something that can be implemented and will be very acceptable to everybody and will be very successful to the organization or group. Also, taking part in group decisions that allow the group to achieve the goal. Now, what's different in that is that, let's say all members of the group say, this is what we want to do, and you're saying this isn't a good idea. You take part in that decision and say, here's why, or here's another way that we can have that decision, but a different way to getting it. And let me just kind of use an example here in that of a jury. And that is where you might have everybody who thinks someone is guilty or not guilty, and you've got that one or two other persons in the group that says no. And then they go on to say why. And once the person explains that, it might allow other people within the team to be able to see something differently. And so often we think, well, usually it's the outgoing people that get it done and make it happen, and it's easier. I don't have to worry about it as much. I won't get any criticism for making any comments. Don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid, because those things can really impede the success of the group. All right, this is a virtue that oftentimes a lot of people don't want to do, and that's putting forth self-sacrifice. So Self-sacrifice means you're putting in the extra effort, you put in the extra time, you're not concerned about the monetary value of it, you're not concerned about anything other than being dedicated to the project, being a team player, being accountable for your own actions. And with self-sacrifice, this is where self-esteem comes in, because you know what you have done, what your contributions have made, and that in itself can make you feel better and make you want to achieve more for yourself. And if nothing else, it gives you a good feeling at the end of the day that you've done the best, the very best that you can at something. And in the world that we live in, we're seeing a lot of people who are doing so much that they really can't give a lot of extra effort or a lot of extra time. They're taking on too many responsibilities or projects. And really, to be the best that we can, we want to be able to focus. And we want to be able to put in the 110% and not just kind of half something. And really, when we go back and look at it, we know that we could have done a little bit better. I could have done a little bit better at this, or this would have been a little bit more amazing if I would have just spent an extra 15 or 20 minutes on this particular area. And so that self-sacrifice is something that can make a huge difference. All right, now this is something that, especially when you're in a workplace environment or you're trying to get involved with getting a new job, is very, very important, and employers are really looking at this, and that is social media and public image caution. Are you being cautious on the social media arena and when you're out in the public? The thing is, and whether this is in the workplace or whether this is at home, everything that you do, while we say all of our freedom of speech is there and we want our constitutional rights, yes, absolutely. But we also want to make sure that what we do reflects in a positive light on those around us. And so if in respecting the rights of others. So for example, if we're posting things that are really defamatory, that reflects your employer, it reflects the social circle that you're with. As they say, whatever type of person that you want to be, you hang around with others that are like that as well. And you're also, unfortunately, judged by the company that you keep. And in social media, they will look at your groups of friends, and this includes dating, relationships, family, employment, everywhere. Everything has to do with social media now. And we want to not forget that this is something of virtue that we can hold as well, and that is being respectful with others and really trying to maintain some kind of positive image that will reflect not only on yourself but that of others. So the virtuous person knows not to publicly display actions, words, or pictures that would promote a negative image of the person or organization that they're affiliated with. When we incorporate all of these virtues, I'm going to tell you, success comes, and it's not through just happenstance. It's because of your hard work, your dedication, your high moral values, but even more, it becomes so abundant because of the core person that you have become by being that way. So much comes from it, so many blessings, so much fruit of your labor happens when you don't even realize it. It's an amazing thing, and it's something that I think everyone needs to be thinking about. And oftentimes you see this just in certain circles, top business leaders, military, police officers, firefighters, nursing, so on and so forth. But this is something that really, these seven virtues, affect in every single relationship, no matter where you're at. And looking for job promotions, looking to get into better social circles, or whatever it is that you want to do, these are really the core virtues. So I'm going to just bullet point them, and then I'm going to want you to go out and try and become that virtuous, notable person. They are integrity, dedication, flexibility and adaptability, communication, team playing, self-sacrifice, and social media and public relation cautious. Those are the things that are going to make your life absolutely different. Thanks for watching part of the 7 series with this episode, the 7 Virtues of a Notable Person. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have any suggestions for future shows, please feel free to send me an email at RebeccaMahan@publicist.com. You have been watching Rebecca Sounds Reveille, brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Project and TLBTV.